どうも、勝手に電力2.0で始めたいと思います。今日はですね、インドネシアのところで、この東南アジアのところ JETP みたいな、この Just Energy Transition Partnership っていうのがあって、このあたりがですね、これからどうやって強化されていくのかみたいなところをですね、見ていく上で IA のちょっと資料っていうところをですね、少し見てみたいなと思っていますと。Navigating Indonesia's power system, Decarbonization with the Indonesia Just Energy Transition Partnership. Summary, the decarbonization of Indonesia's energy system involves a significant transformation. It implies shifting away from fossil fuels, which in 2021 accounted for 80% in the electricity mix. すごいですよね。化石燃料が8割っていうんですね。To higher share of clean energy generation, this should be implemented while ensuring economic growth and equitable energy access to its population of 276 million people, 2億7600万って。Several national and international efforts underpin Indonesia's decarbonization objectives. Nationally, the Energy Law number 13 of 27 and the 2014 National Energy Plan guide the Indonesian government's efforts to reduce fossil fuel dependence. These are complemented by politics aimed at phasing out fossil fuel subsidies in line with Indonesia's goal to achieve net zero emission by 2060. もうだから化石燃料の補助金って減らしていこうと。In 2022, as part of the initiative within the country G20 presidency, the Indonesian government, along with the International Partnership Group (IPG), released a joint statement on the Just Energy Transition Partnership (JETP). The United States and Japan co-led the group with members including Canada, Denmark, the European Union, France, Germany, Italy, Norway, and the United Kingdom. The JTP aims to mobilize USD 20 billion over the next 3 to 5 years to help Indonesia pursue an accelerated just energy transition that supports a trajectory that keeps a warming limit of 1.5 ccm above pre-industrial level within reach. The IPG members aim to mobilize USD 10 billion, while the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero G Fund working group will work to mobilize and facilitate at least additional USD 10 billion in private finance subject to Catholic public finance and with collective ambition by all parties. The G funds includes an initial set of institutions such as Bank of America, Citi, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Max Clean, MUFG, Standard Chartered. The JTP intend to also leverage the expertise, resources, and operations of the multilateral development banks. The JTP developed a comprehensive investment plan aiming to reach a peak in power sector emissions not above 290 megaton CO2 by 2030 and achieving net zero power sector emissions by 2050. In tandem, it seeks to speed up renewable deployment, aiming for the minimum renewable share of 34% of total electricity generation by 2030. 34%ということで再現にしていこうということです。In order to manage the day-to-day implementation of Indonesia's energy transition, the IPG and government of Indonesia launched the Secretariat for the JTP, the Secretariat, which is hosted by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, MEMR, and supported by the Asian Development Bank, ADB, serves as a coordinator for internal and external stakeholders on the JTP and would play an important planning and project development function for the JTP. Current policy drive an increase in power demand. The Comprehensive Investment and Policy Plan (CIPP) for Indonesia project a significant increase in on-grid electricity demand, with an annual growth rate of 6.4%、6% ぐらいどんどん上がっていくってことですね、経済が。In 2022 to 2030 and 5.8% in 2022 to 2050. This is driven by rising income, higher cooling demand, industrialization, and increased electrification for mobility. In the CITPP, expanding industrial capacities, transport electrification, and hydrogen production lead to a shift in electricity demand. In 2022, The residential sector consumed 54% of on-grid electricity, the commercial sector 30%, and the industrial sector 16% by 2050. These shares are expected to shift to 36% for residential, 29% for commercial, and 23% for industrial customers, with transport and hydrogen production accounting for the remaining 12%. Energy efficiency and demand response are identified as key measures to mitigate the impact of end-use electrification as well as in change on the system's peak load. In the CIPP, energy efficiency and demand response are identified as key measures to mitigate the impact of end-use electrification and changes on the system's peak load. However, the analysis falls short in providing a solo evaluation of their contribution, indicating a need for more in-depth analysis using sophisticated Stochastic-based approaches. The JTP aims to accelerate decarbonization. The JTP scenario envisions a significant increase in this renewable capacity, which represented about 9 gigawatt on grid capacity in 2022. By 2030, solar PV and wind are expected to reach 29 gigawatt and 9 gigawatt, respectively, whereas hydropower remains the main cause of renewable energy in installed capacity with 14 gigawatt. Looking to 2050, the scenario foresees substantial expansion with solar PV dominating at over 260 gigawatt, 55% of total installed capacity, wind power reaching about 44 gigawatt, and hydropower surpassing 65 gigawatt. While the JETP scenario outlines an ambitious decarbonization pathway, there are concerns that fast industrial development, particularly in nickel mining, may lead to new off-grid coal-fired plants outside the power system development plan, posing a risk of locked-in emission for decades. A comprehensive study of the off-grid power system is key to anticipate and mitigate its impact. Achieving the JTP scenario depends on supportive politics for solar and wind development, including providing them with a favorable financial environment and reducing requirements to use locally manufactured goods or domestically provided services. To ensure that JTP's objectives are met, it is key to prioritize solar and wind deployment and establish guardrails around these technologies. This involves implementing measures such as priority dispatch, addressing potential bottlenecks in connection queues, and enhancing overall system operations, including closer to real-time generation scheduling and dispatch, improving flexibility, flexibility, and system operations. In the JETP scenario, flexibility provision in the power sector evolves alongside the power system. Challenges related to system adequacy and flexibility can be mitigated with a range of solutions, including improved power system operations, dispatch and scheduling, and constructor flexibility and responsiveness of existing thermal plants. Over time, demand-side measures such as time-differentiated tariffs and flexible EV charging are highlighted for their potential to enhance flexibility, though the former is not explicitly modeled in the scenario. Under the JTP scenario, meeting generation adequacy requirements shift from traditional power plants to variable renewables, storage and demand-side response. To support this, several enhancements in power system operations will be needed to ensure secure operation at lowest cost. The country should adopt the latest planning techniques based on stochastic assessments, which provide a clearer picture of the contribution of various investments in grids, storage, and generation towards the secure system. In operation, the country should reduce its minimum reserved capacity margin from 30% in 2023 to 10% by 2040, and deploy storage and smart EV charging which will be both increasing the amount of variable renewables that can be deployed economically. Flexible EV charging could potentially reduce weekly peak load by 10 to 15%, ensuring affordability and resilience. The current resilience of Indonesia's power system on fossil fuel and particularly coal-fired generation creates constraints that should be considered when devising a decarbonization strategy. The following actions should be prioritized to support decarbonization in Indonesia, taking into account the existing thermal fleet. Review the structure of current coal power purchase agreement (PPAs) to define a phase-out strategy. Understand financial implementation of implication for PLN of reducing operation of their coal fleet. Indonesia's power decarbonization needs a coal phase-out, including reduced operations of private and PLN-owned plants. This requires understanding PPA's finance subsidies, fuel contracts, and asset conditions to avoid deadlock and align with PNL's goals. Ensure the provision of flexibility is properly remunerated. Design robust scenarios with stochastic processes to improve system planning. Chapter 1, the Indonesia energy landscape. Indonesia is a significant player in the global energy landscape. Indonesia is a significant player in the global energy landscape. The country is the 60th largest energy in the world. 6番目に大きいですね。And its economy was the fourth fastest growing G20 member in 2022, behind only the Republic of Turkey, India, and Saudi Arabia. Then the cornerstone of Indonesia's energy sector has historically been in its rich natural resources and endowment, with abundant reserves of coal, oil, and natural gas, particularly coal. Indonesia is the fourth largest coal producer and one of the biggest coal exporters in the world. すごいですね。石炭は4番目に生産して、輸出は1位だと。In 2021, coal-fired generation made up 61% of the generation mix as the country's coal exports reached approximately 470 million metric tons in 2022, about 6% of global coal consumption. In total, fossil fuel makes up 81% of the electricity mix, and as a result, Indonesia is grappling with high carbon intensity in its electricity sector. The country's energy law number 30 of 27 and the 2014 National Energy Plan NEP 14 had set targets to achieve a more sustainable electricity mix, aiming to increase the contribution of renewable energy to 23%, 23% side of total electricity consumption by 2025, and at least 31% by 2050. These targets aim to reduce carbon emissions, mitigate climate change, and address the environmental impact of fossil fuel use. Indonesia has also committed to achieve economy-wide net zero emission by 2060. The main challenges of the power system in Indonesia include high reliance on fossil fuels. Indonesia's power system is heavily reliant on fossil fuels, particularly coal, which has led to high carbon intensity and significant greenhouse gas emissions. Rapidly growing energy demand. The country's rapid economic growth and population expansion have resulted in a substantial increase in energy demand, which the power system will need to meet reliably and at low cost. Emissions reduction and energy transition. Indonesia will need to reduce emissions to fight climate change and reduce local air pollutants, which requires a reduction in coal-fired generation. Infrastructure development. Indonesia will need to modernize system components to ensure secure power system operation, which will require significant capital investments. Indonesia's energy transition can be supported by collaboration between the Indonesian government, international partners, energy companies, and local and international stakeholders. Such collaboration is needed to steer policy evolution, investments in renewable energy infrastructure, strategy to phase out coal generation, and establish regulatory frameworks to support the clean energy transition. The Just Energy Transition Partnership (JTP) agreement signed in November 2022 aimed to accelerate the country's energy transition through a partnership between Indonesia and the international community, led by the United States and Japan, supported by the United Kingdom, Germany, France, the European Union, Canada, Italy, Norway, and Denmark. The JTP serves as a hub to channel investment and manage technical guidance between the various stakeholders. It emphasizes the need for the detailed roadmap to reduce coal-fired power generation and increase the share of renewable energy in Indonesia's power generation to 34% by 2030 to align power sector emissions with the 1.5 system target, aided by the initial investment of USD 20 billion over the next 3 to 5 years. The Indonesian government has established the DTB Secretariat to manage day-to-day implementation of Indonesia's energy transition. It intends to develop investment and policy plans to support the country in achieving its energy transition objectives. The Secretariat is supported by 4 independent working groups, which the technical working group led by the IEA. This report gives technical insights into the development of Indonesia's power sector transition plan under the JTP taking place in 2023, based on the IEA participation. Serving as a pivotal hub, it not only channels investment but also serves as a beacon for technical guidance. Together, these collaborative actions pave Indonesia's path towards a sustainable low-carbon energy future, shaping a narrative of progress and environmental responsibility. Report scope and structure. This report presents an exploration of the Just Energy Transition Partnership (JTP), led by global partners and supported by the International Energy Agency (IEA), highlighting its pivotal role is phasing out coal energy and directing investment toward renewable infrastructure. やっぱりコールから再エネ、renewable infrastructure ですけどね。The report is organized into 6 parts. Chapter 1 sets the scene for Indonesia's energy system and its main challenge ahead. Chapter 2 focused on the intricacies of its power system. Chapter 3 describes the creation and main goal of the Indonesia Just Energy Transition Partnership. And Chapter 4 summarizes IEA's activities in supporting the JTP process. Finally, Chapter 5 provides a stock take of the decarbonization pathway presented in the JTP scenario, with Chapter 6 discussing some of the future steps to make the decarbonization of the power sector a reality. Chapter 2, Indonesia's power system. Indonesia has relied mainly on fossil fuel for electrification. Indonesia's power sector underpins the country's economic deployment and has been rapid growth over the past 3 decades. Access to electricity is nearly universal globally, from about 50% in 1991 to around 99% today. Today, the country needs to strike a balance between economic growth, environmental concerns, and expanding secure access to electricity across the diverse archipelago of at least 17,000 islands. In the early 17th century, Indonesia met its energy needs with a small-case diesel generator predominantly serving urban centers and industrial zones. The limited availability of electricity hindered broader economic growth and social development. Following its independence in 1945, the government established state-owned utilities to centralize power generation and distribution. Entities like Perusahaan Listrik Negara (PLN) played a pivotal role in expanding electricity access across the archipelago. This phase witnessed the development of larger power plants and transmission networks, gradually expanding electricity to rural and remote areas. The expansion from the mid-20s into 21st century relied heavily on fossil fuel, especially coal and oil. The country's abundant coal reserve provided a readily available energy sources, contributing significantly to power generation. However, this dependency on coal also leads to environmental concerns and high emission intensity for the power sector. Electricity demand in Indonesia, which amounted to around 285 terawatt hour in 2021, is divided roughly equally between two sectors. Residential and industrial residential consumption accounted for 41% of annual electricity demand in 2021, its rising share driven by population growth and space cooling, while industrial account for 36%. In terms of geographical distribution, the Java Bali Island accounts for around 70% of national electricity demand, with Sumatra having a share of about 15%. Electricity demand sector in Indonesia is 41% residential, 36% industry, 22% commercial and services. The power sector in Indonesia has expanded significantly to keep pace with the growing economy and population. Indonesia's electricity generation, which amounted to near 310 terawatt hour in 2021, primarily comes from thermal power plants, with coal accounting for around 61% of the country's electricity generation in 2021, and natural gas accounted about 17%. Additionally, it boasts the world's second largest geothermal capacity, offering a clean and renewable energy source. As of 2022, Indonesia has a total installed capacity of 83.8 gigawatts, consisting of 42.5 gigawatts from PNN and 41.3 gigawatts from non-PNN. Electricity generation mix in Indonesia 2021, 61% is coal, 17% natural gas, 8% hydropower, 5% geothermal, 6% bioenergy. The carbon dioxide intensity of electricity generation in Indonesia has on the rise in recent years, remaining significantly above the global average in 2022. The CO2 intensity from electricity generation in Indonesia reached around 780 gram CO2 per kilowatt hour, up from 765 gram CO2 kilowatt 5 years earlier. Power sector CO2 emission intensity is selected country and globally. 2014 to 2022, Indonesia's very high 17 over the 700 gram. The world is here under the 500. It is Philippines is high too. Vietnam will be Turundi. Down these days. In recent years, the Indonesian government has introduced policy reforms to encourage investment in renewable energy and reduce the national reliance on fossil fuels. Initiatives such as the National Energy Policy, the Energy Resilience Policy, and the National Medium-Term Development Plan on outline strategies for sustainable energy development and emphasize the importance of cleaner sources in the energy portfolio. Indonesia holds immense potential in renewable energy, particularly in solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal resources. The geothermal law and feed-in tariff policy are among the regulatory mechanisms designed to attract investment and promote renewable energy utilization. The government is also working on phase out and rationalizing its fossil fuel subsidies, and as part of its effort towards sustainable development. In addition to the target for 23% and 31% of electricity to come from renewable sources by 25 and 2050. Policy, technical, and economic risks to clean energy transition. Indonesia faces multiple risks to its clean energy transition, in particular technical. Systems with high shares of solar PV and wind power require changes to operational practices, like scheduling interval gate closure. Geothermal resolution and summer unit commitment to security and cost-effective accommodates their variability and uncertainty. Regulatory tariffs needs to be modernized in order to unlock flexibility to integrate renewables at lowest cost, including wholesale prices formation, retail time of use, rates, demand response incentives, and specialized tariff for electric vehicle EVs, heat pumps, and water heat. Constructor take-or pay obligation in power purchase agreement diminish the incentives for thermal units to operate flexibly, reducing the system's overall efficiency and adaptability. Financial, there is limited access to funding from local financial institutions at low cost of capital, which impact renewable projects more severely due to their high proportion of upfront capital costs. Geographical, Indonesia's geography poses logistical barriers to infrastructure expansion and electricity distribution across its islands. While rural electrification initiatives have extended power access to remote regions, initiatives such as Indonesia Clean Energy Development Project and 1000 Island for 1 megawatt program aim to bolster electricity availability in areas with the local service through microgrids, solar installation, and off-grid solutions. Decarbonization presents significant opportunities. Despite these risks, the clean energy transition also offers significant opportunities for the Indonesia power sector, including environmental, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and local air pollutants from coal phase-out will increase the health of the population and reduce the negative impact of climate change, including sea level rise. Energy security. Clean energy development can increase energy independence and security by relying to a larger extent on local resources and expertise. Employment. Developing a supply chain for clean energy technologies can boost local employment in skilled manufacturing and construction. Economic. The country has abundant natural resources and huge potential for renewables, especially hydro, geothermal, and solar PV, which can be leveraged for clean electricity generation at low cost. Geothermal and hydro combines are expected to contribute 4.6 gigawatt of the 10.6 gigawatt additional renewable capacity needed to achieve the country target of the 23% share of renewable in power generation by 2025. For utility scale PV, the Jawa Bali system has a potential 60 gigawatt compared to Sumatra, which has more rural areas and has a potential exceeding 600 gigawatt. Innovation. New hardware, software, and algorithms associated with a smart grid rollout will develop needed skills and in-house planning and operating practices, which should result in additional jobs and increase reliability, efficiency, customer experience, and grid productivity. In the long term, the smart grid can enhance resilience, customer engagement, sustainability, and self-healing. Charting Indonesia's clean energy cost policies and initiatives for sustainable future. Indonesia has implemented several policies and regulations to steer the nation toward cleaner energy sources, including foundational energy legislation, the Energy Law number 13 of 27, and the 2014 National Energy Plan NEP 14 established the framework for Indonesia's energy policies and sector governance. Presidential Decree number 112 2022. This decree outlines strategies to bolster renewable energy. It includes initiatives such as establishing competitive pricing mechanisms for renewable sources, offering tax incentives for renewable projects, and streaming the negotiation procedure for pricing agreements, Law number 16 of 2016. Through this law, Indonesia ratified the Paris Agreement under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In its first naturally nationally determined contribution, the country set targets to significantly reduce its carbon footprint. Just Energy Transition Partnership. Indonesia, along with international partners, formed the Just Energy Transition Partnership, initiatives designed to accelerate the nation's clean energy agenda. On economic advancement, this partnership outlines a comprehensive investment and policy roadmap aimed at supporting Indonesia's shift towards